This Wednesday, a U.S. trade court blocked the majority of President Donald Trump's tariffs, keeping in effect those that apply to auto, steel, and aluminum. The ruling was not on the economic effectiveness of the tariffs, but rather the separation of powers as it relates to trade policy. An injunction was filed against the tariffs on the basis that these policies are the role of Congress to make, and not the president. A Saint Lucian consulting economist shared his insights on what consequences this will have for Saint Lucia's small, open economy.
That ruling by the court was a very interesting one. Because you can look at the Trump approach to the tariffs through various lenses. You can look at it through the lens of economic policy, and you can look at it through the lens of governance. In both cases, it is questionable in my view. So the court would have spoken to the governance aspect of it in terms of the president's authority, if you may, that he may have exceeded his authority, that he may not be authorized to implement tariffs of that magnitude in that manner, and of course that is subject to appeal by the president and all of that. So that temporary reprieve gives the market, we like to say markets are fickle. Markets are always looking for the slightest bit of news that makes a difference on the margin.
According to Stephen, the U.S. president still has the opportunity to appeal, so until a final judgment is handed down by an appellate court, leading ultimately to the U.S. Supreme Court, over which a majority of Republican justices presides, the market will still be operating within a zone of uncertainty. On the matter of the impact of the tariff threats, his advice is to brace for a change in the standard of living as consumers will take the hardest hit.
As small open economies, we're always battered by the global winds. And we always adjust, and our resilience has been demonstrated over the years. We have to be prepared to endure some adjustment to our standard of living. Okay? It is not inevitable, all right? But you have to recognize that real incomes could fall. Inflation could accelerate. Your salary would remain the same, but your purchasing power falls, right? It could be temporary, and it could be permanent. Usually they say, well, the response depends on how you expect it to be. I expect those changes to be temporary. The system settles, it will settle again. Okay, the system will settle again. The question is when.
How emerging micro, small, and medium enterprises are impacted remains a concern. That is, especially as Saint Lucia's economic diversification is contingent on them. In Stephen's judgment, the difficulties the tariffs pose to investment will be best solved by changes in supply chains. Despite his admission that responsivity to supply chain issues has not been the private sector's strong suit, he views consumers as the ones who will be impacted more so than investors. In his opinion, this situation exemplifies the responsibility of educated citizens to speak up and restore sense to economic policy. For Choice News Now, I am Sienna Dalto.